Good evening and welcome to Mary's Mantle Consecration. Today we've been praying for Joseph Clark. Not quite sure what that problem is. I'll try holding it out here. If not, then I just need to get a microphone and start it. Okay, so we're praying for Joseph Clark, and we're praying for Mike Sharpa today. So we'll start with our opening prayer. O most holy Mother, whom I love tenderly as my own, in your sacred presence I offer to you these days of preparation for consecration in honor of the stars that adorned your heavenly mantle. I appeal to you to intercede these 46 days for all of my needs, for those of my loved ones, and for your special intentions. Please show me the sweet compassion that you showered upon St. Juan Diego, your messenger. Please give me a pure and virtuous heart like your own, so that I might derive the same consolation, the soothing of my pains, and the lifting of my soul that Juan Diego received from the gentle words that you gave to him centuries ago. Listen, put it in your heart, my dearest one, that the things that disturb you, the thing that afflicts you, is nothing. Do not let your countenance, your heart be disturbed. Do not fear any sickness, nor anything that is sharp or hurtful. Am I not here, I who am your mother? Are you not under my shadow and protection? Am I not the source of your joy? Are you not in the hollow of my mantle, in the crossing of my arms? Do you need anything more? Okay, so let me just see if I can fix this microphone back on me without it screaming. Okay, we'll try that and see if that works. Okay, so our virtue that we're going to be looking at for tomorrow is the 12th star, and it is humility. So we read, when I feel the desire for others to speak well of me, I will remember how Jesus... Nope. Okay. We're working over to here. Okay, we're going to work from here, so this should be better. Okay, when I feel the desire for others to speak well of me, I will remember how Jesus shunned all praise and fame when he cured the sick and multiplied the loaves. I will remind myself of how his mother, the most exalted and exquisite of all human beings, lived her days in quiet love, without fanfare, never calling attention to herself. When I desire wealth and ease, I will think of the Lord's challenge. Foxes have their dens, and birds of the sky have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to rest his head. I will tame myself with his warning, but woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. When I seek to satisfy my appetite for materialism and comfort, I will reflect on the daily life of Mary, a poor and humble woman from an undeveloped nation who had to fetch and carry water in a heavy bucket, cut and break branches for firewood, tend to goats and chickens, and grind wheat with stones. The Queen of Heaven and Earth had no central heating, no air conditioning, no aspirin for headaches. Her queenship was without soft, delicate hands and personal servants. When I realize that I am spending my precious time looking out for myself, I will recall that Jesus never acted in this way. He lived his life solely for others, renouncing his advantages of being God, submitting himself to the life of a poor carpenter and an itinerant, and eventually to a violent and untimely death. When I think nothing of putting myself first, I will turn my thoughts to Mary, who was quick in mind and body to help those in need. Mary set out and traveled to the hill country in haste, in a town of Judah, where she entered the house of Zachariah and greeted Elizabeth. When the wine ran short, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." When I focus my talents around my own goals and desires and refuse to ask God what his will for my life is, I will bring to mind Mary's fiat, which began with the Annunciation and had no greater expression than her quiet presence at the crucifixion. I am the handmaiden of the Lord. Let it be done to me according to thy word. And I will say like Jesus in the Garden of Olives, not my will, but yours be done. When my pride roars within me, insisting that my ego be fed and my will satisfied, I will remember that I am only truly great when I am most humble. Okay, so I actually have to go across and pick up a piece of paper that I need for tonight's talk. Okay, so I'm a little bit distracted with that reading, so I apologize. And I don't know if this is really going to be without incident. It sounds like it still might end up having that really high tone, so we'll do our best. I'm just going to make sure that my other mic is completely off. Okay, so maybe that'll help. Okay, so this happens to be one of my favorite virtues to talk about because, as I mentioned earlier when we were doing acceptance, when I was a postulant, I had come, I was stationed in actually West Virginia for my first year in our order, and I had come back to Crescent for Christmas, and I was there for a month. And the sister who was in charge of postulants and novices lived in Crescent, and her name was Mother Amabilis. And Mother Amabilis gave me a book to read when I told her that I was in need of a, this is bad. Sorry about this, I don't know what to do with it. I was in need of a spiritual reading book. So she gave me a little book, okay, and it was called The Practice of Humility. And I laughed to myself because I'm a slow reader. But this book, the print was very large, well, not extra large, but it was probably like a 14 font. And it also had pictures, and it was a small book. And I thought, well, even with me being a slow reader, I think I could probably finish this in one sitting. And lo and behold, that book took me 6 months to read. It was the gift of God to me. It was written by Pope Leo XIII when he was still a bishop, before he was Pope, and he wrote it to his seminarians. And he told them that he wished every one of them to truly be humble servants, because then they could truly be the greatest ministers as priests. And everything in that book, it just, it hit me so hard. And I realized that whenever we're going to read a spiritual book, it's not about getting through the book. It's about our hearts and our lives being changed, because we want to be able to be closer to the person that God's calling us to be, to truly be his image and likeness. And the one quality that Jesus mentioned about himself was that he was meek and that he was humble. So I thought for tonight I can't do that whole book, but I do want to say, if anyone is interested, I did a program called Radio Maria for a number of years, not too many, but I think a couple. And one of the books that I did was my favorite book, My Practice of Humility. And it took me probably at least 2 months or more to do that one. And I know that that can still be listened to in their archives. However, I love teaching that class and going through that book. And if anyone wants to do that with me, I can always make that another program that would be available. Also, if anyone wants that book, I actually rewrote it because when I wanted to get it, it was out of print. So I retyped it, and it's only 14 pages front and back. Like I said, it's a short book, but it's a powerful book. However, the reason why I'd like to do it with a person is because I know that when I shared it with others, they just read it like, I don't see anything so sensational about it. And yet when I was able to walk with them, they were amazed by the gold mine that was there. And I just know that that book was written maybe for seminarians, but I think God really had me in mind, and that it wasn't just for me, but it was for me to share with others. Because it truly is life-changing, because one of the things that we're all bombarded with is the deadly sins. And the deadly sins are 7 tendencies. But the roots of all those 7 tendencies, okay, like this is one of them, okay, but it is pride, you know, and then you have the other ones, okay. But pride is really at the root of all sin. And when we can nip it, we have order in all other places. And so it is, it's like a cheating virtue. You know, you get that virtue at least in practice, or at least have a handbook, and you've got a pretty good ability then to keep other tendencies and weaknesses in control. But I thought for tonight what I would look at is a litany that was written by Cardinal Raphael Mary de Vel. He was the secretary to Pope Pius X. Both of them so saintly. And I look forward to the day when this cardinal is also recognized by the Church for his holiness. But he wrote this litany called the Litany of Humility. And it is a really powerful litany, and it's a challenge to actually pray. So I'm just going to go ahead and read it, and I'll make a few comments. O Jesus, meek and humble of heart, hear me. From the desire of being esteemed, deliver me, Jesus. Okay, so we look at that very first one, and how many times we do want people to think well of us, to be esteemed. And there's nothing exactly wrong with it, except that when that's our whole desire. And we have to look at that. Am I doing things to be esteemed? Or am I doing them with a pure motive of love? Love of God, love of neighbor. Then we go to our next one. From the desire of being loved, deliver me. Now, we all need to be loved. God did not make us, okay, for anything else. He is love. That's our origin, okay, is from God. But it's the whole idea of doing things with a desire to be loved. You know, St. Therese, the child Jesus, she was really bombarded with that reality when she saw this inclination of many of herself as well, and other sisters, to really want the appreciation of their superior. There was something in her personality that really drew them, and you could almost do things just to make her happy. And she realized that that was very selfish. And she was not willing to give that into that particular inclination, and she would refrain as a result from doing anything to ingratiate herself. And yet she would, you know, be as loving as possible towards her superior. but not with a selfish motive. She didn't want to do it, except for genuinely loving this person. And this is something we can actually look at in ourselves again, because a lot of times we as soon as another person is going through a difficulty and can't give us their love, our love shrivels up, and then we can really question whether our love was really genuine. Okay, from the desire of being extolled, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being honored, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being praised, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being preferred to others, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being consulted, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of, there starts another area. Okay, so before I go to the next section, when you read these, none of these are bad, okay? Having honor given to you, or praise, okay? At times being shown a preference, or being consulted, or approved, these are beautiful things, okay? It's the idea that what's my motive, my desire behind all my actions? And it's a great examination of conscience, okay? A lot of times we feel like we're less of a person if someone else is preferred to us. And yet it's totally the opposite of what Christ teaches us. That's why he told his apostles and others who were at the table to take the lowest place and really to work on having this respect for others and to rejoice when they're the ones noticed, and our efforts and our successes or anything are not noticed, but someone else's are. This then is allowed to be detached, and a detached or disinterested love is the kind of love that's considered holy. In other words, it's not about self. Okay, it's truly about God and others and wanting their good and their happiness. So, again, we're not asking for dishonor. We're not asking for being shunned. Okay, that's not what this is saying, but it's looking at my desire. Am I, is that the motive behind what I'm doing? And only we can answer that. We can always attribute good motives to others, but with ourselves, we have to really dig deep and just see how free is my love. Is it truly selfless? Okay, then it goes to another section called fear, and it says, from the fear of being humiliated, deliver me, Jesus. This is really one of the ways that we had to be schooled in humility. And I have to say, I find myself sometimes not wanting to ask for a virtue, just because, like if I'm asking for patience, I know that God hears our prayers, and especially if I felt like he's put it on my heart. But I fear the situations that he's going to put me into to practice that patience. And when I ask for humility, truly, there's a fear that goes on inside of me because I don't know what those humiliations might look like that will help me to be truly a humble person. And yet, we want to pray it. And we know that God will truly give us the grace as the situations approach us and the different humiliations. And again, if we always keep our eyes focused on Christ and look at how much he humiliated himself. Again, just being a human being, okay, taking our human nature is absolutely amazing. I remember when I was a kid, we had a movie when I was in 7th grade. Never knew exactly what to expect in my grade school with religion. But just one class, we had this movie, and there was a man who was looking at all these ants. And he was just compassionate, I guess, for the ants. And all of a sudden, he curled up, and the next thing you know, he's an ant. And he's a black ant, and there's red ants. And he is helping the black ants to conquer the red ants. And it seems like it's very successful, and then all the black ants end up killing this ant. And it was actually supposed to be an analogy of Christ, coming to conquer evil, sin, death, the effects of Satan, and yet we turn on him. And, so it was just, the teacher said, like, God becoming man, it's nothing compared to us becoming an ant. And so it was a great analogy just to really wake yourself up to how humble our Lord was. And then he obeyed, okay? It's so amazing. He allowed himself to be gossiped about and maligned. So again, when we pray this, we keep our eyes focused on Christ. From the fear of being despised, deliver me, Jesus. We're not asking to be despised, but from the fear, so that we don't let that keep us from doing something that we truly believe would be in the will of God. That which is, but it'll make us look despicable to others. But a love that's genuine, okay, doesn't worry about who we're associated with, or we don't really look at a particular job as something that makes us lower. And if we do, then we don't worry about it. That would be where, don't let the fear of being despised, okay, rule me. From the fear of suffering rebukes, deliver me, Jesus. So we don't have to be afraid of falling. We don't have to be afraid of making mistakes. We're human, and we do make mistakes, and we don't have to hide them. Okay, we don't have to make them, hang them out, okay, for everyone to see. But many times God allows them to just do that. Sometimes we get to do belly flops right in front of everybody, but not to be afraid of them. Okay, from the fear of being calumniated, deliver me, Jesus. Again, if we remember that Jesus was, and that's a really hard one, okay? But then we know that he's allowing us to share a little bit of his cross with us. And, and then it becomes the privilege of being one with him. From the fear of being forgotten, deliver me, Jesus. Last night we talked about how often Jesus is forgotten in the Holy Eucharist, or throughout the day, how few people actually have a conversation with him. How many people are afraid to make a sign of the cross and say prayers before they eat if they're in public. These type of things. So, if we remember this, when we feel this way, we know that God is sharing just a little bit of what he suffers. And then it becomes more of a privilege, and we don't feel that loneliness if we keep our eyes focused again on Christ. So from the fear of being ridiculed, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being wronged, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being suspected, deliver me, Jesus. That others may be loved more than I. Okay? That's a huge one, and it's a beautiful one. To be really able to pray that. And I think it's one of those fun things I watch and pray about, actually, because it's a time period that's very delicate. But when you have a young married couple and they have their first baby, there's a time period where you see almost a jealousy that they both want the love of the child. And learning how to be able to rejoice in the child loving the other is a huge moment in growing that happens a lot of times in married life. And again, God gives it to us in all different forms, but just one of those ones that I remember I've witnessed a number of times with young couples, and I just see the development, and then I see them, that love for their spouse to become even greater, because it becomes much more selfless and truly more genuine and purified. And then that others may be esteemed more than I, that in the opinion of the world, others may increase and I may decrease, that others may be chosen and I set aside, that others may be praised and I unnoticed, that others may be preferred to me in everything, that others may become holier than I, provided that I become as holy as I should. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. So this is a treasure, okay? Again, it's a very hard prayer to pray. And it is something, again, that needs to be prayed in the right spirit. Again, you're not asking to be despised, you're not asking to be humiliated, but not to run from the cross that may come in different forms that are listed here. So, Jesus, make it humble of heart, make our hearts like unto thine.